Hey everybody, this is another episode of Mr. Wagner's Math Help, but this time I am sharing with you one of my favorite board games, Settlers of Catan, and we are going to be using this game in class to talk about and discuss probability and investigate some things involving probability. So first I want to show you how to set up the game. One of the reasons I love this game so much is the game board is always changing. Every time you play it, actually is a new game board. So first you're going to see these pieces here, and on the side of each piece there's a number 1 through 5, and what you have to do is you have to match up the numbers to get the outline of your game board. So I'll start off, I have the 3 and 2, here's 4, here's 4, so I'm going to connect the 4 with the 4. We're just basically going to do this the whole way around the game board. So I have to find the 5, I'll connect 5 with 5, and from here what you do is you take these hexagon shapes and we're going to shuffle these up, and this is why the game board changes every time, because these different resources will move around the inside of the hexagon. So I'll shuffle them up, and then you're just going to place them out in order. Just start at any point and you're going to go clockwise around. These pieces here are the lumber. This represents wheat, these yellow ones. The light green are the sheep. You have the gray, which represents ore, and then these kind of reddish foothills, those are the brick. So those represent the different resources you can get in the game. So the next part of setup is you'll find these pieces with numbers on them between 2 and 12. And we are going to place them in order, starting with A, around the board clockwise again. So we'll start with A, and after A is B, and then C, and I will quickly probably fast forward through this, and then we'll come back together to learn the gameplay. Okay, so now the game board is set up. We have numbers that are now placed on all of the different resources around the whole board, except for this one spot, which is the desert, and no number goes there because there are no resources on the desert. So you'll leave that one blank, but the rest should have one. And as I said before, I just went clockwise, spiraling towards the middle, and now you're ready to play. So this game is for 4 people. I like to say it's a cross between Monopoly and Risk. Monopoly, you're trying to gain money to then win the game, and in Risk you're trying to dominate the world to win the game. But in this game you are collecting victory points to try and build, I would guess you'd say, the greatest civilization with cities and settlements. So every game begins by rolling the die to see who goes first. Once everyone's done that, the player who goes first will get to place their very first settlement. So over here I'm going to show you what those look like. These are the 3 different wooden pieces that you have. We have these pieces, which are roads. These smaller houses are settlements, and then you can upgrade settlements to cities. Like I said before, the point or goal of the game is to get 10 victory points. Now you get victory points by either building cities and settlements, or you can get victory points by building the longest road. That's worth 2 victory points, and the largest army is worth 2 victory points as well. And then once you have 10 victory points, you've won the game. So once you start out, so say I rolled and get to go first, I now am going to place my settlement at one of the vertices of these game pieces. So what I mean by that is, if you see where 3 of them come together, where 3 of the hexagons come together, I can place my settlement there. And what that tells me is that when these numbers are rolled, I get to collect that resource. For example, if a 3 is rolled, because I'm touching the this game piece, I would get a lumber for a resource, and that looks like this. And if an 11 was rolled, I would get a brick, which is this. And if a 9 was rolled, I would get a sheep, which is this. So as you see on the game board, the most game pieces you can be on at a time are 3. And then once I've placed that settlement, I can choose anywhere to put a road. Now, I'm not going to give you any strategy here about where the best spots will be, but if you can guess where this is going, it has to do with probability, because as a lot of you know, an 11 might not be rolled quite as much as, say, a 6 over here. So you'll start seeing as you play the game which resources are more rare and which ones are more abundant, and how that affects the game, because you can trade as the game goes on. So once I've placed my settlement, the play continues clockwise until it reaches the last player. Now, the last player has the benefit to put 2 settlements down at once. Because they got the last pick, they get to put 2 in a row. And then the play reverses counterclockwise. So the person who put down their first settlement, in this case the blue player, they will be the last to put their second settlement down. So I'm quickly going to do this and then show you what a game board might look like. Alright, so I have the game board all set up. You'll see that red player has 2 settlements to start the game. The white player has 1 settlement here and 1 settlement over here. The orange player has these 2 settlements. And the blue player has 1 settlement, and I want to show you the last settlement he gets to place. Since he's placed first, he will now place the last settlement. And this brings me to one final point I'm going to make. I'm going to put his settlement right here. And as you'll notice, between all the settlements, there has to be 2 line segments. So I cannot place this settlement right there because it is only 1 line segment apart from orange. So every single settlement in the whole game has to be at least 2 line segments away from one another. So right here, and it's 2 segments away from this settlement over here. So this might be what a game board looks like. And from here you would take turns rolling the dice. Now, I will show you an example. So if I roll the dice, a 10 is rolled. Now anyone on this board who has their settlement next to a number 10 will get that resource. So red right here is next to a brick resource, so he will get a brick. And let's see if there's another 10 on the board. There's another 10 on the board right here, which is an ore. So orange player will get an ore card. So this is where it's kind of like Monopoly, but instead of getting money, you are getting these resources to build up your cities. Now, one final point I'd like to make is wherever you place your second settlement, whatever that's touching, those are the 3 resources you start the game with. So orange would probably have started the game with 2 ore and 1 sheep because that's where he's touching. Blue would have started the game with 1 brick, 1 lumber, and 1 sheep. And yellow might have started the game with, red might have started the game with an ore, a sheep, and a wheat. So sorry for the camera work here. I'm kind of doing this all on my own. But now the gameplay starts. You roll, you collect your resources, and with these resources you can buy these different things. So a road costs, let me try and get the lighting here for you. 1 road is a brick and a lumber. To build a new settlement is a brick, a lumber, a wheat, and a sheep. A city is 3 ore and 2 wheat, and a development card is a sheep, a wheat, and an ore. So these are the things you can buy once you have collected your resources. Now be careful, if you have more than 7 resource cards in your hand at a time, when a 7 is rolled, you have to get rid of half of them, rounded down. So as you'll notice on the board, there is no 7. So you might say, what happens when a 7 is rolled? Well, first of all, if you have more than 7 cards in your hand, you have to discard half of them, rounded down. And secondly, there's this little piece called the robber. And the robber starts out in the desert, and when a 7's rolled, you can move him to a particular spot that blocks that number. So in this case, if you move the robber over here, anytime a 5 is rolled, red would not receive the ore from this 5. Any other time if a 5 was rolled, red would actually get 2 ore, because red has 2 settlements on this 1 game piece. So that's pretty much how the game plays out. You can buy, oh, one last thing, those development cards. A development card are one of these things right here, and you don't know what they are when you buy them. There's 5 different kind. Monopoly allows you to, when you play the card, you get to choose 1 resource, and everyone has to give you that resource. But instead of going through all these, I would just advise you look through them when we play the game and see what they all do. Now, the turn you buy a resource card, you cannot play it that turn. You have to wait at least 1 full turn before you can play it. One last thing to note. If you have tons and tons of wood. So say you're on the lumber and you're getting tons and tons of lumber and no one wants to trade with you, which by the way, you can only trade during your turn. You can actually turn in 4 lumber into the bank for any one card. So say you have a ton of lumber, no one wants to trade, no one wants any lumber, you can turn 4 in here and get any card you want. Now, that leads us to the very last part of the game board, and those are these ports. If you look around the game board, you'll see these ports. Now this is a port that says 2 to 1 ore. That means if you build a settlement that touches this port, either here or here, what it means is you can trade in 2 ore for 1 of anything. There are also ports on here that say 3 to 1 with a question mark. That means 3 of any resource can be traded in for 1 of any other resource. So those are things that can help you out if people don't want to trade with you, especially if you might be getting close to winning. If you can build a settlement, you can do it there. And I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. I think one last thing I did forget is the only way to build another settlement is if you build a road there. So I can't just say, oh, I'm blue, I'm going to build a settlement over here, up there. You can't, because blue's over here. So you actually have to build roads first. So like I said, you have to be two away from any other person. So if I built a road here, I'm 2 away. But guess what? I'm 1 away from white settlement. So blue still would not be able to build. So blue would have to build a 3rd road before they could build a whole new settlement. And obviously, the advantage of building settlements is now you get new resources whenever those numbers are rolled. So there's different strategies to the game. I don't want to go over those here because we're going to be exploring them in class. But that's the breakdown of the game. I recommend you watch this maybe again if I went too quickly, because I expect you to come into class knowing how to play, because this game takes about an hour to an hour and a half. So we can't really mess around wasting any time in class. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm looking forward a lot to this investigation. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Have a good night, and I will see you in class.